And we are live. Hold on, y'all. Okay, we live. I gotta figure out. This is my second time using this, so I have to figure out how to view my Facebook. Okay, there it is. View on Facebook. Okay, it's spinning. It's deciding, making a decision as if it want to load or not.
So the Facebook is supposed to show up on here, like the group?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was trying to view it on Facebook because I do want to be able to see the comments. Like in case someone have questions, but we're not gonna worry about that. But hello everybody. It's Topic Tuesday, and the Topic Tuesday is co-parenting toxic free. And I have Miss Nasheia here with me. She's a family attorney. She's a certified co-parenting life coach, and she gonna give us some tips on how to co-parent y'all without all this toxic stuff going on. Okay. So, hey, Nasheia. So,
Hey.
you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what led you to, on the entire mission of helping single mothers?
Okay, so hi everyone. How are you guys doing tonight? My name is Nasheia. I'm a 30-year-old single mom. I currently live in Maryland. A little bit about me. So I've been practicing family law specifically for about almost 3 years now. And I'll give you guys the kind of clip notes version. But basically, the reason why I decided to practice family law and to do co-parenting coaching is because of my own personal situation, my own personal story with being kind of trying to navigate the family law system. Even as an attorney, I didn't know much about it. I was doing criminal law previously. Then I had to go through the family law system with my daughter as far as custody and child support. Didn't really know what I was doing and felt like railroaded. Like I just didn't know what I was doing. So from that experience, it kind of like made me realize like, wow, like if I'm an attorney and I feel like I'm lost and, I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't feel like, I really had justice. I really wanted to, it kind of, I guess, made me want to get into that field. So I took a job, which I still work now for a nonprofit in which we basically give free legal advice to low income residents. And I really enjoy it. I think one of the main things that I really enjoy about practicing family law is being able to, help people in their most vulnerable and emotional times. Some people don't like family law for that very reason. They say, oh, it's a lot of, like emotions and drama. But for me, I believe that I've been called to do this because, even though it can be draining at times, it's also very fulfilling. And so that's why I decided to do it. So when I'm not doing the family law piece, I also do like certified coaching, do co-parenting coaching. Co-parenting coaching is my main area. And basically I help people to, come up with different like strategies with how to co-parent in different situations and different circumstances. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much, Latasha, for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Like, if y'all are not following her on Instagram, you gotta follow her because she gives some great tips. And we already have Shaquita saying she said she need all the advice as she's going through this right now. So yeah, a lot of single mothers are. So Nasheia, can you tell us, like you said, you give co-parenting tips, and she give a lot of co-parenting tips on Instagram. Great advice. I've been following her for a while. I'm like, whoa, like she really is called to do this. So Nasheia, what exactly is co-parenting?
So, co-parenting is basically, having to parent your child with the other parent due to a relationship dissolving. It could be due to a marriage. It could be due to like, you know, a relationship where the two of you and the other parent were in a relationship. Or sometimes, you know, there are cases where maybe you weren't in a relationship with the other parent, but, you know, you happen to get pregnant and now you find yourself in a situation where now you have to parent this child along with another person. And that can be difficult. You know, that's not easy, you know, to do. And a lot of times, in a lot of situations, from what I've experienced, is that, you know, you find yourself having to do this at a time where, you know, maybe, let's say if you were in a relationship with the other person, this breakup is fresh. So you have all these other emotions you still have to deal with, whether it was betrayal, maybe this person cheated on you, you know, maybe there was some abuse involved. So now you find yourself having to deal with that and also trying to parent your child with this other person. And that can be very, very, very difficult. So that's pretty much what it is. Just trying to, you know, raise your child with the other parent.
Yeah. And it's definitely hard. Shaquita said co-parenting is torture. It is torture. And I just remember that I forgot to share to the group. Give me one moment, ladies. Let me share to the group. I don't know what my mind is. Let me share it to the group. Sorry, sorry, sorry. So while I'm sharing this to the group, Nasheia, I don't want to make everyone wait. Can I know you talk about all the time being a like a bitter parent. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you give us some examples of that you've seen, you know, in the field of bitter parents, like a bitter baby mother? Since we're all single mothers here, what are some examples of like a bitter baby mother?
So it's it's funny that you bring that up because I hear that term a lot, and I think it just depends on the person that's speaking. Meaning, so I'll hear from, like, let's say I'll have, you know, some guys, they'll call me and they'll say, you know, my baby mama, she bitter, she mad because I don't want her anymore. I got me a new girl, and now she don't want me to see my kids. You know, so that's their perspective. But if you talk to the other parent, you know, it could be a legit reason why she don't want you to see your kids. You know, it could be because you don't have a stable place to stay. It could be because this is the fifth relationship you've been in, and she doesn't want all of these different women around her children. So, I mean, I try not to just like, say, oh, this person is bitter, because you really don't really know their reasoning. Well, just to kind of give you some, like, an example, I would say a bitter person would be someone who has no justifiable reason why they don't want the other parent to see their child, and they're holding on to pain that maybe the other person inflicted in the relationship, and they want to use this child as a weapon. So I would say, that would be someone that's considered bitter, like they just don't want, they'll say, well, they'll hold on to the hurt that this other person has caused them and use that as a reason to say, well, you can't see your child, or you can't, come around. But honestly, if I can be completely honest, I have not seen much of that. Like, I've seen instances where the parent may deny the child, but it's for like a legit reason. Like, you want to pick the baby up, but you don't have nowhere to live. So it's like, I don't feel comfortable as a mom letting my child to go with you. But from the fathers, he can just see it as, oh, she just mad, she just bitter, she want to control, she want to tell me how I can see my child, and where I can see my child. So it kind of just depends on like the person that's speaking.
Right, and I asked that because I ain't gonna lie, I was a bitter baby mama, and I used to regret that, and I had to ask God to help me, to heal from that, because my son's dad was killed when he was 2. And at the time he was killed, we was going back and forth. We wasn't even on good terms. Like, we had just got into it on Facebook, both of us looking stupid, going back and forth, and we don't had a child together. And it's something I regretted. I remember he asked me, could he see his son, and I was like, no. And because I was mad about a birthday party that he wouldn't help me with a birthday, an expensive party that my son wasn't gonna remember anyway. At the time, he was 1. So a couple of months later, I got the call like he was, he had got killed. And I know a lot of single moms, they're angry at their kid's father for whatever reason, but I try to encourage them to let that, let it go. No matter what he has done, you can't control him. You can't make him do what he don't want to do. Only God can do that. So you have to let the control part go, and you have to forgive and just let the hurt go no matter what he did. Because like I said, I was mad at him because he wouldn't help. It was petty. And it was childish. So, and I was bitter. I was that bitter baby mother, and I can't go back to him and be like, I'm sorry, blah blah blah, because he's no longer here. So that's why I try to encourage single moms to let that go. And then also bitterness lead to, a toxic parenting situation. So what are some things that single moms can do to overcome just being angry and not being able to forgive so that they can begin the journey to co-parenting peacefully?
That's a great question. And I don't want to get to preaching, but I'm going to just tell you, honestly, for me, God, because me personally, when people that know me and they see how I co-parent my daughter's father, and I've heard them say, I don't know how you able to do some of the things you do after some of the things you told me that this person, has done. And for me, it took forgiveness. Like, it took forgiveness. It took maturity. It took me really knowing, like, growing my relationship with God. I'm being honest. Like, if it wasn't for God, I would not be able to do it. I just would not be able to do it because of the pain that I've endured. And I had to really learn how to forgive and say, okay, this is no longer about me. Yes, I wasn't the best person in that relationship, so I can't just be the victim. But yes, I've experienced some pain in this relationship, but I cannot let that pain, stop me from trying to co-parent with this other parent in a manner that's effective and healthy for my child. Because at the end of the day, I know this is a very cliche saying, but they say it in family law courts all the time. It's really about the best interest of the child. And if this other person, loves their child, like my daughter's father, he loves her, he wants to be in her life. I can't sit here and hold on to pain and say, well, because of what you did to me, I'm gonna make this difficult for you. Like, that's just not, I mean, that's not easy though. That's not easy. I feel like that's easier said than done. But I feel like some actionable steps that people can take is, if you're a Christian, really learning the word of God. I mean, I'm a Christian, so that's what I'm gonna say. If you're not a Christian, I would say maybe going to therapy, or even if you're a Christian too, therapy and Jesus. I advocate for both. But going to therapy or even mediation, but I really think it really comes down to like forgiveness, like learning to forgive even those who don't deserve it. Like, even when that parent does not deserve the forgiveness, you're not forgiving for them, you're forgiving for you and for your child, so that you are able to heal from that hurt, and that way you can therefore move on and you can try to co-parent as effectively as possible. But I think that's the first step, learning to forgive. You got to forgive.
Right. Yeah, that is the foundation. Once you forgive, I think everything else will kind of flow. You'll be able to work on things that need to be worked on as like adults once you forgive. Jaquita said, I just feel like we are not on the same page. My house is structure, his house is the fun house. What advice can you give?
I hear that all the time too. It is so funny, when I hear these things, because like, you will be amazed that, you may feel like, Shaquita, like you're the only person going through this, but I hear this so much. And when I tell people, it's not the answer that they want to hear, but it's the truth. It's like, and I can speak from a professional. And the reason why I love doing this is because I can speak from a professional, but I also can speak from personal experience. And I think that's why people tend to like navigate to me, maybe a little bit more than my colleagues, because this is not something I just went to school and learned and read in a book. Like, no, I live this. I practice law, I practice family law, but I also live this thing out. So like, I know it from both standpoints. And I think that what I had to do, I'm a type A. I'm type A. I like structure. I like control. I'm just being honest. Like, that's just me. That's me. So in the very early days of co-parenting, I was losing my mind. I was like literally losing my mind because for me in my house, I'm more like how Shaquita said, I'm more structured. I have a routine. My daughter's in bed by a certain time, like structure. And then when she goes to her dad, it's not that his way is bad. It's just different. It's just different. So when she goes there, it's like, hey, I go to sleep when when I'm tired. Like, and it's like, no. I mean, so that was very hard for me in the beginning. And then what I had to realize I had to say to Nasheia, okay, this is the reality. When a relationship doesn't work out and, there are going to be certain things that are not going to be the same. You're two different people. So there are two different people, two different households. You're not together. You cannot expect to control every aspect. Like, that's just what it is. Everything is not going to go your way 100%. The sooner you get over that, you will be able to sleep a little bit better at night, And I had to just tell myself, it's okay. Like, for example, I'll share this quick story. For a while, I would really, 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 really drive myself crazy about my daughter, like doing her homework. Like sometimes she would come home from the weekend and, she was having a good time with her dad and her family. So maybe she didn't do all of it, but I would like go crazy, like Sunday night trying to do homework last minute, like whatever wasn't done. And I said, Nasheia, you just have to accept the fact that some of this stuff not gonna get done. And I know that's like, for some people, it's like, oh, absolutely not. My child got to make sure all of the assignments are done. But for me, in order to keep my sanity, I said, listen, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is it really going to matter that she didn't answer 2 problems on the assignment? No, it's not. In the grand scheme of things, this is not going to be a huge, big deal. And this is the reality of my situation. She is in 2 different households. We are not together. So I cannot enforce my ways on him. I can discuss them. We can talk about them. I can share my concerns and we could talk about it and try to reach a decision where we can try to come together as much as possible. But the reality is some things are just not going to go your way and you just have to just accept it. I think that's just kind of a part of it.
I agree. So let's say you're doing all you can to co-parent, but things aren't working between you two, so you need a mediator and you need to take it to court. So if a single mother has to represent herself in court, whether she decides to take her child's father to court or whether he takes her to court, what are some tips that you can give her for representing herself in court?
Great question. So, and I think the statistics say 80% of family law cases are with self-represented litigants, meaning that they have to represent themselves because they can't afford an attorney, which makes sense. If you're a single mom, you may be on limited income. You don't have $3,000, $5,000 to pay no retainer fee to hire no attorney. So you find yourself having to represent yourself. Like I said, I had to do the same thing when I went through my situation. And I would say some tips, just off the top of my head, and it can change depending upon the jurisdiction that you're in. But first, you want to see what pro bono services are in your state or in your jurisdiction. So in Maryland, we actually have free pro bono. We have free pro bono nonprofits. We also have self-help centers where you can call a chat line and you can ask just questions, advice for free. So I would start there. Then after that, I would say you really want to learn just how to conduct yourself in court, how to talk to a judge, how to, and this is one that you probably want to think about, but how to control your emotions in court. Because a lot of people lose it. They may have all of they may have the text messages. I hear people say all the time, I got all the texts from all the messages, but then they can't present it to the judge because the other party says something and it kind of just throws them off. And now they just upset, he's lying. It's like, whoa, you have to find out how to control your emotions in court in a way that does not allow you to get off track. But other than that, it will be case by case. So you would have to, reach out to an attorney, or if you need coaching or something like that, I would, love to assist you. But it really just depends. But just like generic advice, I would say see what pro bono services are in your area. Learn how to conduct yourself in court. Be organized. Get yourself a binder. Okay, that's another thing. Get yourself a binder and be organized. And I think one of the hardest challenges for pro se litigants is knowing how to admit evidence in court. And I think that's the key, because you can have the evidence, but if you don't know the rules, if you don't know how to get it in, then it's kind of like you don't have it.
Right. So, Shaquita said she went through bread for the city in DC to get a free lawyer.
Okay.
So yeah, like you, I think I think there's free lawyers here in Texas too. When it comes to family law, I'm not, I thankfully I've never had to go through it. Thank God. I pray I never do. But I'm sure that there are free resources, like you said, everywhere. But my biggest thing that I got from what you said is to kind of reach out to someone for help if you have to represent yourself in court. Like you said, maybe a free lawyer. You do the life co-parenting life coach, so I think that would be a big help. So yeah, definitely, ladies, if you're going through that, definitely try to reach out to someone for help to kind of lead you and steer you and guide you in the courtroom. So when it comes to co-parenting, how can we set boundaries?
That's another one. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
Now I'll say this. It depends on, okay, let me back up a little bit. I think that it is important to say that sometimes you can do everything, that you can to try to co-parent effectively, but sometimes you just can't. Like there are those situations where, you had a child by someone who's just, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to label nobody, but if you know what I'm talking about, those are some people that's just, you trying to co-parent with them, and it just seems like they just doing everything they can to manipulate you, to abuse you, to, I had a call with a client today, and she basically was saying that this person told her, like, hey, you chose to divorce me, so I'm gonna make your life a living hell. And he's been doing that, like calling her phone nonstop, just abusing her. Like someone like that, you cannot co-parent with them. Like you can't, because you can't allow somebody to use your child as a way to further abuse you. The things that he was doing was just absurd, crazy. But as far as setting boundaries, I think that that's something that can be discussed in mediation. I do think boundaries are important. For me, I'll just kind of share a little bit about my personal situation. We discussed it. We went to mediation, and we actually have a parents in agreement. So we didn't have to litigate. So meaning that we didn't have a contested case. We did for child support, but for custody, by that point, I think we both were at a point where he's like, okay, listen, we're not trying to spend lawyer fees and spend all this money. Let's just try to see how we can kind of figure this thing out. So we actually have a parents in agreement that I drafted myself. Cause like I said, I was like, listen, I don't know how to do this, but I'm not hiring no lawyer. I can't afford it. I'm a lawyer and I can't afford it. So I'm about to be up in this law library and I'm about to figure this thing out. So I found out how to, do a parenting agreement. In our parenting agreement, it says that, any issues arise, we're going to go to mediation. So in our mediation, we actually set up like, okay, these are the boundaries, it could be as far as different things. It could be as far as communication. I know that's a huge one, like a huge, huge complaint I'll hear from clients. They'll say, I'll tell you what I hear from the men, and I'll tell you what I hear mostly from the women. The men mostly say, she always calling to check on the kid, all these hours of the day. Like, I don't have to be answering all her calls. Like, I'm the father. I know what I'm doing, And then sometimes I'll hear from the mom. They'll say, sometimes he thinks he could just pop up at my house whenever he wants to see his kid. Like, just because it's his kid, he can't just pop up. So I do think that boundaries are important. And for each person, each situation is going to be different as far as what those boundaries should be. But they should be communicated, preferably in writing. Have them written down like, hey, like I said, if you can go to mediation, and say, hey, we're going to come up with like a parenting agreement, and in this agreement, this is going to outline how I'll plan to co-parent, so it'll have, language in there that talks about, just different things. And then boundaries as far as like communication. It can be boundaries also as it relates to having a new partner, because that's another big one. Okay. When do you introduce the new partner? What is the child allowed to call the new partner? Like my daughter, she has a stepmom, and her stepmom told me one day, she said, she called me mom, and I wanted to see how you felt about that. And I was like, honestly, for my situation, I didn't care. And the reason why I didn't care was because I knew how much she loved, like I know how much she loves my daughter. And she's been in my daughter's life since she was 2 years old. And she really treats her like she's her daughter. And that doesn't make me jealous. It makes me grateful, because in my line of work, I see stories all the time of people treating kids horrible. So for me, I'm like, I'm blessed, to have this situation. I'm not going to let my pride get in the way of, my daughter. If my daughter feels comfortable calling her that, that's to me like a good sign that when I'm not around, you're treating my daughter well. But that's another area where you can establish boundaries, maybe for, a different person that may not be okay. And that's fine. Each person has their own boundaries, but that's another area, discipline, just different areas. But I do think that boundaries are definitely necessary.
Right. Shaquita, what if the other parent keeps allowing the significant other to be part of the co-parenting?
Meaning that the other co-parents significant other is overstepping their boundaries pretty much. Yeah, I that is an issue. That is an issue. And I think that, again, that's something that should be communicated between you and a co-parent and say, hey, I understand that this is your significant other. However, when it comes to these certain issues, I think that only me and you should be involved when making those decisions. Now, again, like I said, each situation is different because, again, I've had to deal with the same issue, literally same issue. And what I had to communicate to the stepmom was like, hey, I understand you love her. I understand that you want to be in her life and you do a lot for her. So you feel entitled to have a say. And I'm not saying you don't have a say, but I would prefer that you communicate whatever those things are to him, and then me and him can discuss it. But it doesn't have to be three people sitting down at the table, to discuss, because ultimately I had this child by him, and I ain't being funny. I'm just saying, like, yes, you do have a say, because, and I teach my daughter that, not to kind of get off topic, but I teach my daughter that, like, this is your stepmom. You're going to respect her. You're going to, she is a part of your life. But I have the right as her mother to say that I feel more comfortable discussing certain topics with the father. And if you want to be involved, then you voice your concerns to him, and then me and him can discuss it. So your voice will be heard, but you just won't be sitting there at that time, because we tried it before and it just didn't work, So again, I think that's one of those situations that it just kind of depends on, each case is different. Each situation is different. But I do think that the other co-parent should be mindful of that, like, just to not let that new person think that they just automatically have a say and they can just make decisions and stuff. Like, no, that's not appropriate.
Right. Yeah, and back to when you were saying that the child's fathers come to court and they're like, well, she called me all times of the day, like she don't need to be checking up on me. I was guilty of that. Anytime my son went with his dad, I call every 5 minutes. And if he didn't answer, I'm just calling, I'm worried, thinking something is wrong. So it's normal. And then also too, before he passed, he ended up getting in another relationship, and I was in a relationship too. And he would, when he came to get my son, he would side eye the dude, but he would never like try to be manipulative or controlling in the situation. So that kind of led me to be like, okay, he has a girlfriend. A part of me wanted to be like, no, you can't take her around her. No, but he wasn't telling me that. He wasn't telling me like, oh, you got to do, I don't want my son around him. So I gave him the same respect that he gave me in that situation. So my situation was, I know a lot of single moms go through so much in these co-parenting situations. I didn't really have to go through all that, and I'm thankful. But I do think that we determine, sometimes we make the situation worse by our actions, by what we say, by our words, by our actions. We make the situation worse, and it all goes back to, just forgiving and trying to, and not trying to control the situation, not trying to control how he parent, as long as he's not doing anything to harm the child. So that's just my take on it. I'm not an expert in the situation, and I haven't been through half of the things that some of you single moms have been through, but that was just my take on everything. But so when it comes to co-parenting, like, can you give us some tips on effective communication? Like Shaquita said, like when we were just talking about the other parent trying to overstep their boundaries, how will we
Mm-hmm.
communicate effectively to, kind of resolve the situation or attempt to resolve the situation?
That's a great question. So I would say, like when clients call me and they say that they're having these issues, I always think, me personally, I like to communicate in writing. Because if it's written down, and I'm not saying that you should be writing to try to create like a paper trail in case you have to ever go to court, but that I just like to have it written down. That
That's
way,
a good
hey,
idea.
you won't have to. I'm not yelling. I'm not screaming. My emotions are under control. I write it. You can read, hopefully, and you understand what I'm trying to say. So I would say, written. That's my preferred method. I like to write. I like to have it written down, and that way, if you can't say, oh yeah, well, you said this. Well, no, let's go back. Let's pull up the receipts. This is what I said, and this is how I said it, and there you go. This is the time. This is the date stamp. I like that way. But I would say, yeah, just try to communicate, without emotion, as far as like anger or being making accusations or using derogatory language or terms, or just, and I know I feel like it's easier said than done, but just trying to communicate in a way that's healthy. Now, I have heard clients say, well, I try to talk to the other person and they call me out my name. I said, oh no, I shut that down. Me personally, I haven't had to experience that. But what I tell people is, you didn't sign up to be nobody's punching bag. Like, you don't have to just interact with somebody because they cussing you out and you got to talk to them. Absolutely not. But I think that sometimes, what parents will do, they may do the extreme opposite and say, okay, I'm just not going to respond to none of their messages. I'm not going to answer none of their calls. I'm just going to just ignore them. I don't think that's good either, because it's like, then they can potentially use that against you and say, oh, I've been trying to reach out to my kid for 5 days. You're not answering the phone. So what I like to do is say, I would say, treat it like how you would treat a boss you don't like. Like, that's your boss. You can't just ignore your boss. But
Right.
keep it short and sweet and keep it professional. And I'm just making this up off the top of my head. And this is what I do in my calls. Like when they call me and say, Nasheia, what should I say? I would say something like this. I understand that you want to talk to your child. I am more than willing to communicate with you in a healthy manner that is both safe and effective. The end. What was you talking about, girl? Did you see what I'm saying? You always, as I previously stated, I am more than willing to communicate with you, in a manner that's healthy and effective. Unfortunately, if we cannot do that right now, we're going to have to try again tomorrow or something like that. I don't know. But you don't have to just go back and forth. Like, I don't do the back and forth. Like,
Right.
you calling me out my name and all that? Oh, no. I'm not going to go back at you, call you out your name. I just don't have time for that, because I need to preserve my peace. Like, I'm trying to be peaceful and healthy and all of those things. And I'm not about to be going back and forth with nobody. That's just me personally. But again, I would say, if you like a lot of parties who go through situations like that where the communication is really, really bad, they actually have this app now. I think it's called like the Family Wizard app. And you can ask the courts to, order that the communication be done through the app, or you can ask that it be communication be made through another third party. Maybe you have a mutual friend or like a relative who will be willing to serve as that middle person to communicate, just depending upon how bad the situation is, because some people just cannot communicate. It could be due to domestic violence, and if that's the case, you don't want to force this person to communicate with, someone who's been abusing them, so it's like, it just kind of depends on your individual situation. But I guess those would be my tips on that.
And that's the Family Wizard app.
I think it's called the Family Wizard app. I don't have any personal experience with it, but I've heard people talk about it.
Okay, that's interesting. I never heard of that. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like with these co-parenting situations, if we don't know how to co-parent effectively, we don't understand that our kids are watching like everything we do, all of the arguments, all of the negativity. When mama talking about, daddy in a bad way, when daddy talking about mama in a bad way, all the arguing, the fight, they watching it. We
Yeah.
wonder why they go to school and act out. We wonder why they disobedient, why they grade suffering. But part of the I'm not gonna say part of the reason, but sometimes the reason is because of the co-parenting situation that mom and daddy have. So I'm so glad, Nasheia, that what came on and gave us some of these tips, and I pray that it bless and help some single moms in their situation. Now, if let's say if they say, well, the information was very good, it was knowledgeable, but I need more in regards to my individual situation, how can they reach out to you?
So they can send me a message on my Instagram. If they go to my Instagram, it's my first and last name, Nasheia Conway. You can also send me an email. My email is my first and last name, Nasheia.conway@gmail.com. Like I said, this is what I've been called to do, so I could talk about this for hours. So like I get excited when people reach out to me, and ask me questions, because it is my goal to like assist, as many people as I can, because like how you said, I feel like at the end of the day, and I know this is very cliche, but it's true, it's not really about us, it's about the children. And like how I was talking to my sister earlier today, we were in a car, and we was just talking randomly, and we was just talking about how we was asking my daughter, like, just like, who's the parent that like, lets you stay up, late, who's the parent that like, that's funny. It's just kind of see like what she think about her parents. And while we were doing that, I said, you know what, one thing I can say is that I'm really, really glad that we're able to co-parent, because another thing that people don't think about is that when your child they're not in all cases, but in many cases, if your child can sense that the two of you are divided, your child can use that against you. Your child can use that against you, meaning like if you say for example, if you and your co-parent just don't get along, y'all just do not like each other. If that child get older and they see that, okay, mom and dad don't get along, they'll try to manipulate the situation and say like, okay, well, if my mama tell me no, I'll just go to my daddy's house and get it on the weekend, or vice versa. And I'm like, oh, absolutely not. So for me, it hurt my daughter's dad. It's like, listen, we ain't gotta be best friends, but we gonna be on the same page because we are a team. Like, we don't want her turning on me, and I don't want her turning on you. Like, we come together. So like when she does something bad or disrespectful when she's with him, he'll let me know to say, hey, this is what she did. This was her punishment. Don't let her, watch TV. And it's the same thing. Like, I'll text him, hey, this is what she did. She was acting up on her virtual school, and I know she's coming with you tomorrow, but I don't want her thinking that she gonna come with you and y'all gonna just be eating ice cream, having fun in the sun. And I think that's important because she's like, dang, like, okay, now I really gotta do right because like my mom and daddy on the same page. And I think that's important, especially with these kids nowadays. They'll try to find a loophole. They'll try to find a loophole to get what they want. So I think that's another thing that people should, keep into consideration as like an incentive to want to co-parent effectively. It'll be better for you also. Just parent them as they grow older. They're gonna become teenager. They're gonna start rebelling and stuff. Like, you're gonna need somebody to help you out. So,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hello, Miranda. Shaquita said to put what she asked if I. Okay, can you put her email in the chat, please? Because I don't have social media. Yes, ma'am. I'll put her information in the chat across the platforms that we're streaming on. So, Nasheia, before we end tonight, is there any last tips that you would like to give single mothers who's co-parenting right now, who's maybe going through court battles, whatever the case may be? Is there any last encouraging tips you would like to give them?
I would say, like I said, I'm a Christian, so I'm always going to preach about the Lord. So, that honestly, that has been my rock. Like, that's what has helped me to be able to cope and to deal, like to just be able to just deal with this, because it's very hard. It's not easy. It is not easy. It's hard, and I tell myself like, okay, I got 10, I'm 8 years in, but I got 10 more years to go, at the minimum, so I know like that it's not going to be an easy road. And I have to tell myself, like, I have to be intentional about, okay, well, what is going to be my plan? Like, how am I going to cope? So I think it's very, very important to do, a form of self-care, whether that's like counseling, coaching, therapy. If you got like a group, like, like as far as like, your community, being connected with other single moms that are going through like similar situations, so you can have a sense of community, so you won't feel, isolated and alone, and that you have people that support you, in your journey. I think that's very, very, very important. And I would also say that, just do the best you can. Ultimately, you can do right, but if the other person doesn't want to do right, you can't force them to do right. But at least you can say you tried and you've done everything that you can do to try to, make the co-parenting situation, better. But ultimately, like I said, you can't control another person. But just do your part, just do your part, and, take care of yourself. So that's what I would say.
And one thing I've also noticed is that if you do what you can and you honor God and put his word to the test, he'll work it all out in your good. Like, he will.
Amen. Amen.
The other co-parent would think the other parent would think they're getting over, but they're not. So
Mm-hmm.
like Nasheia said, all you can do is do your part, trust God to do his part, and live according, do what he say in his word, forgive, love, be gentle in spirit, don't repay evil for evil, and he'll take care of it. He will.
And I just want to add one more thing. This is just dropped into my spirit. I would say, get over the idea that things are not fair. Because I feel like a lot of times, people say, well, this is not fair. That's not fair. And it may not be fair, but you still do right anyway. Like how you just said, like sometimes you may feel like, well, that's not fair. He doesn't do this or whatever it may be. But just know that, at the end of the day, if you're doing right, God is going to honor that. And it may not seem fair, to the world. People probably look at my situation and say, Nasheia, you crazy. That couldn't be me, because there's no way I'll be doing X, Y, and Z. Like he need to be doing this. He need to be doing that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not thinking about what's fair. I'm thinking about ultimately what's in the best interest of my child. And if I'm doing a little bit more, hey, whatever. But if we're just, if everybody's happy and, we my daughter's happy, that's all I really care about. And I'm not used to, but I'm not concerned about what's fair no more. So,
Right. Shaquita said, "Amen, amen to that."
amen.
We try not to take it to church, but I mean, you can't talk about this stuff without God, because I know that all of us aren't Christians, but if you don't have God in it, if you don't have Jesus in it, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. Like
Literally.
you literally drive yourself to the insane. So it worked for me. It's working for Nasheia, and it's working for millions of other single moms out there. Just put Jesus in it, and do what you can, and trust him to do what you can. So Nasheia, thank you so much, girl. This was long overdue. I'm so glad we got the chance to collaborate. Y'all have to follow her on Instagram. She's always dropping nuggets. I'll put her email, her social media handles, and if you want a session, a co-parenting life coaching session with her, I'll drop that in the comments too. And that's what we have for y'all. We hope it blessed y'all, and y'all have a great night.
Take care, everyone.